Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Biz Books. My name is Gene Marks, and of course, you know this show because we are both a podcast and a video, and we know that every month, 2 times a month, I interview some really smart and great authors of great business books and see what we can learn from that. My guest today, David Meerman Scott. David is now on the 8th edition of the new rules of PR and marketing. David, first of all, thank you so much for joining.
Hey, Gene, great to be here. Thanks very much. I know, I can't believe it myself, the 8th edition. Where did the time go?
Tell me a little bit about the journey. Like, when did you first write this book? It wasn't 8 years ago, so it was longer than that. How did you come to write it, and how did it evolve since?
Sure. I was in the corporate world. I worked first on Wall Street, and then I worked for financial information companies like Dow Jones and Reuters. And back in 2002, I was fired for using the kind of marketing that I wrote about in the New Rules of Marketing and PR. I got fired because my marketing was too radical for the company I was working for at the time. And so I started to implement those ideas within companies as a consultant, like, wow, this is working really well. So I decided to write a book, which I started in 2005, wrote throughout '05 and into sort of mid '06. And the first edition of the New Rules of Marketing and PR came out in June of 2007.
Wow.
Almost exactly the same time as Twitter, almost exactly the same time as the iPhone 1, almost exactly the same time as Facebook went from only students to everybody in the world. So dumb luck, I don't know, but my timing was impeccable. Yeah. And because just at the moment that people were looking for how to implement these ideas, oh my gosh, I need to get a better website. I need to figure out what the social media thing is, although we didn't use that term yet. I've got to figure out how to do blogging. My book came out, and it hit the international bestseller list. It's now in 29 languages, and I realized very quickly that it gets out of date quickly. So that's why over the last 16 years, I've updated it 8 times, roughly every other year.
That is amazing. And are you do you do like consulting for companies, or do you pretty much make your income from the book and speaking and that kind of activity?
It's actually changed. So when the book came out in 2007, I was a huge in-demand speaker, and I spent from 2007 to March of 2020, and we all know what happened in March of 2020.
I think during that period, the NBA shut down. That's what happened.
Yeah, everything shut down, right? So from mid 2007 to March 2020. I was pretty much full-time speaking, as well as advising companies on their advisory board in exchange for equity. So these are typically marketing and sales related software companies. Most notably, I've been on the HubSpot advisory board since the very beginning, still am. And so it was advisory for equity and speaking. The pandemic hit, no speaking gigs. So I pivoted a little bit. Well, actually, I should say I pivoted a lot. And today, for the past couple of years, I've been super happy to not get on airplanes every week, not do 250,000 air miles a year, not spend nearly 100 nights a year in hotel rooms, but actually enjoy being at home, I've got a couple of different houses, going to my vacation house in Nantucket Island, and I bought a camper van. I love to hike, so I love to surf, which is why there's a surfboard here on my left. Actually made this surfboard. So it's been a great transition for me, and I do coaching.
Yeah.
In my world, there's a big difference between consulting, which is what I did prior to the New Rules of Marketing and PR coming out, in about 4-year period after I got sacked by the company I was working for, and before the New Rules came out. That 4-year period, I was doing full-blown consulting. And what I do now, I call coaching. Here's the difference. Consulting means there's a work product that has to be created, a marketing plan, write a ebook for me or something. Coaching, I just pretend I'm smart and help people out, which is a big difference, and I actually kind of love it. So I typically work on a retainer basis. I've got about a dozen clients, and we meet a couple times a month, and I love it. It's great. It's super fun, and I help people out to implement the sorts of ideas I talk about.
You talk about video in the book, and I have to also, because I told you before we even started recording, I didn't want to jump around a little bit, but
That's good.
It has really changed a marketer's life, and a salesperson's life is what video has done. It is I look at you right now. I mean, it is like fucking unbelievable. I mean, when you compare the technology to like 10 years ago,
Oh,
you
yeah.
look like you're in a TV studio right now.
Well, and this is a studio in my house that I built for about $20,000. I've got, and you can see it's got full-blown studio. Although it's not running now, this is where I show my slides.
Yep.
And then I can look into my other camera here, and I can point to my slides. Or I don't have it running, or I can go full screen with my slides, and then talk to the camera like this, and I'm controlling 4 cameras here with my left hand, and I've gotten good at it now. I used to I kind of screw it up, but now I can. I go right over to the camera, so it's good. And I've probably done, I don't know, 50 virtual presentations in this little studio. It's amazing how far video has come. And this level studio 5 years ago, probably $1 million, and now it's $20,000. And I went high end. I've got a great microphone. I've got great cameras. You can do it for a lot less than that. But it is amazing, and every company, and you look amazing too, where you are with. I love all the books in the background. As an author, as an author, it warms my heart to see all those books back there.
Because I do a lot of speaking myself, and when COVID hit, that really pushed me, obviously towards virtual. So I did the opposite of you, because I'm lazy and slovenly. Like, I didn't want to invest, and cheap. I didn't want to invest all the thing and set up a studio. And I live in an apartment in Philly, so
it makes it a little bit different. I'm lucky I had a spare room.
Yeah, you've got a spare room.
This room is only a studio. It's a spare room. It's great.
So I set up I have a friend of mine who has a video studio like 3 blocks from where I am right now, and he has a green screen little studio there, and he charged me $500. I go in there and I can do a presentation.
Yeah, there you go.
It's multi-camera. But I guess the point is that it's changed the way messaging gets out is video. It has enormous impact, and I guess it's a conversation. It probably was much less covered in version 1 and 2 of this book than you're covering it right now, correct?
Well, version 1 and 2, it was really hard to do video. You needed a professional camera. I don't know when the iPhone first allowed decent quality video, but it certainly wasn't iPhone 1. And by the way, iPhone 1, I have my iPhone 1. I have its original box. In the original box is worth $2,000.
Yeah, but you used it, right?
I have used it. It's a used iPhone 1. Serial number matches the serial number of the box. If you have an unopened iPhone 1 in its box, unopened, it's worth $50,000. I just thought that was mind-blowing to me. But you know what? The newest couple of models, 13 and 14 iPhones, fabulous video. I mean, just an iPhone, fabulous video. The only thing to make it super professional is better sound. So a lot of people will film videos on an iPhone, which is great. Don't get me wrong, do it, film it on the iPhone. But if you add one more element, which is perhaps a lavalier microphone with an external recording device, or even record into the iPhone itself, and get that much better sound like you and I both have on this video, that makes it great. And I've been studying a lot, Gene, on the neuroscience around why video is so important. And it comes down to something that all of us humans have that goes back for tens of thousands of years, hundreds of generations. The idea that we all want to be part of a tribe of like-minded people, and when we know somebody They're part of our tribe. For example, I'm a huge fan of the Grateful Dead. I've wrote a book called Marketing Lessons from the Grateful Dead. Every book I've written has at least some reference to the Grateful Dead. I've been to 91 Grateful Dead concerts. I own a guitar that Bob Weir, one of the founding members of the Grateful Dead, used for over 100 concerts in the 1980s. I mean,
just think about
I'm
how
a
much
geek.
better you would be if you didn't lose all those brain cells from going to those Grateful
I'm,
Dead concerts.
yes. Well, I think I got rid of the cells I don't need and enhanced
Right. It was the ones that weren't being
the
used
ones that I
anyway.
use.
Okay.
But what's interesting about the neuroscience is that proximity is important, and the idea of being near somebody that's part of your tribe, and as a company you can do that by bringing people together, having a conference, or bringing some of your best clients together for a dinner. This is important stuff because we feel safe and comfortable when we get to know someone like that. That's why when you walk into a room and your friends are there, you feel great. You walk into a crowded elevator with strangers, you feel uncomfortable. It's a natural human reaction. But what video does is it adds another form of neuroscience, which is called mirror neurons,
Right.
the part of our brains that fire when we see someone doing something as if we're doing it ourselves. And I'm going to demonstrate that for you. I've got a lemon.
Okay.
And a slice of lemon. You didn't know I had props, did you, Gene?
Did not know. Keep going.
And if I take a bite of this lemon, my brain fires from the eating the lemon, and I'm going to do that now. And my lips kind of get a little bit of funkiness on them. My eyes close, water a little bit, but my brain is firing. But your brain, are you feeling the lemon, Gene?
No.
You're not feeling the lemon. I bet some people.
I can see, I'm seeing your expressions and your reaction to the lemon, and I do feel that.
Yes,
right.
Your brain is firing.
Yeah.
As if you are feeling the lemon, as if you are the one eating a lemon. Even if you're only listening to this podcast, you're not watching us.
Right.
Your brain will fire as you're thinking about biting into a lemon. Now here, I mean, this is a long drawn out story about neuroscience.
Okay.
And here's why this is important for video. You and I are not in the same room.
Right.
Are you in Philadelphia now?
I'm in Philly right now.
I'm just outside of Boston. So we're, I don't know, let me take a wild guess. We're 420 miles apart, whatever the number of miles is, probably less than that. Less than that. I'll go with 280. We're 280 miles apart. And but we feel as if we're in the same room because of video.
Right.
Intellectually, we know we're not in the same room.
Right.
But through mirror neurons, we feel we are in the same room.
Right. Right.
So that's why video is so important. And that's why during the pandemic it took off, is because we feel that same connection as if we're in the same room, that same tribe of like-minded people who watch this podcast on a regular basis, your regular thousands of regular listeners, feel a connection to you, Gene, and to your guests.
So let's turn this tactical then, John. I mean, you're talking about all the benefits of video. You do cover, some of this in your book. But okay, we get it. Video is powerful. You do make that connection. Say you're a VP of marketing, say you're a business owner, say you're a marketing manager at a small or mid-sized video. How would you be incorporating video into your company?
I think it's important to be thinking about how video can be an important part, but not get so obsessive that you drop everything and do video. So I recommend that if you can get a video on the homepage. I recommend if you can have profiles of customers, profiles of employees, and natural is good. Highly produced, it just feels like it's highly produced. Whereas if you do something that feels authentic, I mean, I don't like the word authentic, but I can't think of a better one right now, that feels like, oh, here's someone who's just talking to me, like you and I are doing right now. Yep. So, and some people are not as comfortable on video as you and I are because we've done it so many times, but, do a couple of takes, get it right, and have hey, here's our director of research and development, and you've got your camera, good microphone's important. Hey, what do you love about your job? What do you love about creating the products and services here at this company? Just get them to riff on that for a while. Find 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute that's interesting, and put that as part of their bio on your website, not just the headshot and they went to this school and that school, and they love their kids, which is what most people do, but have a video of why they love their job or why they love the industry, or what they do on their free time even.
Why did you say
Super interesting stuff.
Why did you say that you don't like the word authentic? I mean, that does sound authentic. Is it just because it's become
It's a word that I think is overused, and the
Okay.
way that people sometimes overuse it is not really what I'm thinking about here. So the concept of being authentic is great, because that's really what I'm trying to get at here is imagine that you're sitting across from somebody at a Starbucks or at a nice dinner, and you sharing your drink of choice, and just getting to know them, and wow, this is great. I'd rather be here than anywhere else at this exact moment. That's the kind of feeling that you want to try to get on video, and video can do that.
Sure.
I feel like because video has become so popular, and many of the channels, whether that's YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or the other Facebook, the other channels that optimize video, what tends to become popular are the things that feel authentic to that particular audience. So be thinking about, for your business, who are you trying to target? What feels authentic to them? And I want to give you an example.
Sure.
I love the example of a dentist. His name is Dr. John Marashi. I've got to know him 3 or 4 years ago. I met him at a conference where I was speaking. I was talking about these ideas, and he goes, "David, I'm a dentist. What are you talking about? Video? I have nothing I got to show on video. No one wants to see a video of me drilling into someone's teeth."
I actually have to interrupt. I have to interrupt you. Like I actually subscribe to this dentist YouTube channel where he's literally drilling into people's teeth.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I find it
Nice.
fascinating.
So yeah, I mean, that's different approach. But so I said to Dr. John Marashi, I said, "What do you love to do?" And he says, "I love to skateboard." I said, "Well, why don't you do some videos of you skateboarding?" So he actually went all out with this. He now, in his dental practice in California, has skateboards on the wall. He will occasionally skateboard from one examination room to another. I want to make it clear, he doesn't stand on a skateboard when he's working on a patient.
All right, I got you.
And he's got videos on his website, videos on his Instagram. His Instagram now has, I believe it's over 30,000 followers,
Wow.
videos of him skateboarding.
Wow.
And he contacted me about a year later and said, "David, I want you to know I've measured that just adding videos and photos of me skateboarding, doing what I love, doing what I'm passionate about, has increased the number of new patients by 30% and increased my practice revenue by 23%.
Amazing. That's amazing.
And because here's what's interesting, Gene, is we all are attracted to those who are passionate.
Yeah. And
that's one reason why I've got a surfboard and a model of a Saturn V rocket and my Grateful Dead logo here, because those are some things I'm passionate about.
Sure.
And we are attracted to people who have passion, and the more you can show that passion to the outside world, whether it's passion for your clients, passion for the business or the industry you're in, passion for something you love to do outside of your work, the more people will want to do business with you.
Okay, so I'm going to do something very unusual. I've never done this on this podcast.
You're going to eat a lemon on camera?
No, not that. I usually stick to the topics of the book. But listen, David, I mean, you are a marketing expert. You've been doing this for a number of years. And I have to get your take on a big marketing issue that's in the news today and this week. Now, for those of you guys watching and listening to this, we're recording this like the middle of April. So by the time this comes out, it's going to be a few weeks from now. So more events will have transpired. But Alyssa Heinerscheid, I had to bring this up on my phone, is the VP of marketing for Bud Light.
Okay.
And this week, there is this huge news story because Bud Light, she is like a millennial age woman. She, hopefully you're following this story because it's
I'm not. This is a new story to me, so I'm glad
so
to hear about it.
I want to get your take on it. So she's a VP of marketing. She's a millennial age person. She came on board at Bud Light and said, "Hey, we need a rebranding. The brand's getting stale. We're losing market share. We need to do something different. We need to embrace new people." Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
so they launched a campaign with a trans person, Dylan Mulvaney's got a very big following online. And
Okay.
it's not a discussion about trans. It's just she's
Yep.
got a big following. And the
Mhm.
point is to show the diversity of Bud Light and to try and reach out to,
Sure.
all those audience, whatever. So they brought Dylan on as a spokesperson.
Mhm.
And they made like a special line of like Bud Light cans with Dylan's picture on it, and she's been out there as a spokesperson talking about Bud Light, whatever. Anyway, huge backlash.
Of
Okay,
course. Yeah.
it's a very controversial issue, and some
Yep.
people are
Yeah.
very
And
problematic.
so some people think it's great. Some people are saying it's woke.
I mean, crazy.
Without even reading about it, I can see
You can see
what's
what's
like.
going on. We had like Kid Rock made a little mountain of Bud Light cans and was like had a viral video where he was shooting the Bud Light cans. So
Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
give you
Yeah.
an idea of what's going on. Okay. But
Right.
here's the other thing, and I'm going to get to my question for you about your take is as I'm speaking right now, Bud Light has lost $6 billion in market value
Yeah.
since the campaign was announced. Just so
Doesn't surprise me.
yeah, we're not just talking about like a wokey or but whatever, but this is like dollars. You can imagine their institutional investors are
Yeah.
beyond this house. Now, first of all, this is a woman who's like, she's trying to shake things up and trying to do
Yep.
something different. I'm sure she had
Sure.
buy-in from others in the executive team or whatever.
Yes.
I don't even know by the time this gets published, David, if she's even going to have a job because who knows,
Yes.
the way corporate America works.
Of
And
course.
I guess that's so. My question to you is not only what your what your take is on this as it applies to any marketing person or business owner who wants to do something a little different, or maybe even something a little controversial,
Yeah.
and the risks involved. Like,
Yes.
what are your thoughts on a situation like that? Do you mind
Well,
me asking you?
no, first of all, the first thing going through my mind is the marketing person is a woman, I think you said,
It
right?
is a woman, yes.
Okay, so she has generated a ton of interest in Bud Light.
She has.
A ton of interest in Bud
has.
Light.
She has.
And so for a lot of people, if you think of a couple weeks from now, a couple months from now, they're not going to remember the issue, but they might remember Bud Light, and they might decide to choose to buy some in a bar or in a supermarket or whatever, where they buy their beer. So that's interesting to me.
It is.
It's interesting to me that she didn't try to do a rebranding. She didn't try to do something incredibly radical. It's just a spokesperson.
Yes, it's a campaign.
And so you can run a short-term campaign, a couple of weeks or even a couple of days, generate a ton of attention, and move on. So I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I think often, and this has been proven with Nike. When Nike has done some things that are controversial over the years, and people burn their Nikes and whatnot. A lot of that is not people who are current fans of Nike, but people who say, "Oh, Nike shouldn't be doing this kind of marketing. I'm going to protest it." Well, they're not a customer, and they're not losing anything. So I don't know the demographics of Bud Light, but I'm wondering in my mind, are the people who are complaining existing Bud Light drinkers or not?
Right.
Maybe there's a combination. So those are the things that are going through my mind. But I think I would applaud her for taking that chance, and also applaud the chief marketing officer and the CEO and everyone else who had to buy in as, hey, it's generating attention. Can I throw one at you?
Yeah,
Also this week, I've been giving a lot of thought about this. By the time this episode runs, I will have written a blog post about it.
Okay.
HBO
changed their name to Max.
Changed their name to Max.
Yeah.
I have a strong opinion on that. What is your take, Gene?
So I'm a huge watcher of TV, and
Okay.
I subscribe to HBO Max. like Succession, and I don't want to give a spoiler alert to anybody, but Succession is all about taking over. Is the main character of Succession, the old man, he is, again, spoiler alert, he died in the last episode. But if you've been watching Succession, we've been kind of leading up to that.
Yep.
It's called Succession. HBO bought Cinemax, if you remember, them, I don't know how many years ago, 10, 15 years ago. And they have been merging the HBO and the Max, names, their brands together. And my take is that at some point, their market analysis has shown that Max has got more of an impact on their audience than HBO or HBO Max. And so because they've been going toward that direction anyway, this has just been the succession of moving towards that next brand.
Interesting.
And secondly, to that, if it's of any interest, like I'm a big fan of Smartless, which is a podcast with Will Arnett and Jason Bateman and Sean Hughes, and it's absolutely hilarious. So they're releasing a show on HBO that's like a live show of their podcast, but it's on Max. They're saying, coming up on Max. They just are doing the trailer, and I knew immediately what they meant. Like when they said it was going to be on Max, I was like, oh, it must be on HBO Max or HBO. Like it didn't, as a viewer, as a fan, it had no impact on my recognition of the brand or anything like that. And finally, if I can say, I'm 58 years old. HBO was one of the very first cable movie, channels out there. Yep. So it's been around for like 40 years.
Yeah.
You aged a bit, and
right. Okay. I'm fascinated. I'm glad I asked you, because I have the opposite opinion.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a little bit older than you, so I remember HBO when it started, and that 40 years of brand history to me is something valuable that I'm not sure I would have gotten rid of.
Okay.
I feel like dropping HBO is like dropping the crown jewels and saying, we're not Rolls Royce anymore. We're Max, or just like taking a great name that's memorable and dropping it. And then I think Max. First thing I thought of is 737 Max, which is the airplane,
the Boeing airliner that
had two crashes. That Boeing had to completely shut down the assembly line and spent years fixing it, billions of dollars off the stock price of the 737 MAX aircraft.
Right.
And I am not a big movie watcher. I actually recently canceled my HBO subscription. Just wasn't watching it enough. So I'm not necessarily their target market, but I felt as a marketer that taking a name that millions, hundreds of millions of people know and changing it, and to my mind, it was changing it because the Max didn't imprint on my mind. It was HBO that was imprinted on my mind. I thought that was a miss, but time will tell, I guess.
Time will, of course, tell. And I'll argue back with you that you dropped HBO. You've known that you're not a big watcher. Maybe rebranding with a whole new name may put that, position that brand in a different light to you 2 years from now. When you decide
could be.
And the beauty of it all is we don't know. I love it. This gets back to the Bud Light thing. And I think you and I are in agreement on the fact that I do like it when marketers take risks. And
I do too.
They're trying to shake things up, and it's a new world, and they try to move it on. We only have like 10 minutes or so left. And I have to, and again, you included in your book a new section on AI and machine learning.
I did. Yeah.
So I'm going to give it out there because it's so in the news, and I'm
writing about it. I'm utterly obsessed by it.
Tell me, put it into perspective for our viewers, for our listeners. Again, marketing is such a critical part of our businesses. Talk to me about your thoughts on ChatGPT, AI in general, conversation AI, now and in the future. How do you think that will change a marketer's life?
Thank you for this question. Very, very much on my mind. And I want to say that the new edition, 8th edition of the New Rules of Marketing and PR came out before ChatGPT.
Yes.
Nothing about ChatGPT in it. However, there's a whole chapter on AI because I've been following AI and using AI for 3 or 4 years now. I'm an advisor of several different AI companies and an investor in several AI companies. I'm using it in my work all the time. I think AI is absolutely going to be transformational for all markets, all businesses, all industries, all job functions, but especially for marketers, it's going to be, and people who do marketing for their business, if they're running small companies, even if they don't consider themselves a marketer, super, super important. So ChatGPT in particular is such an easy way to just mess around and get a sense of what artificial intelligence is. Now, when I think of AI and marketing, or AI in anything, I like to think of two things: the data and the math. And that's all that AI is. It's math applied to data. So the question becomes, whose math is it? In this case, it's from a company called OpenAI, and they named their math ChatGPT. It's basically how the system interrogates an enormous database, which is essentially they pulled from the public internet. So that's the data, math plus data. ChatGPT's math and what you can get with their basic service is using the public internet's data. So I invented something called newsjacking. It's a full chapter in the new rules of marketing and PR. The 8th edition has been for several editions. The newsjacking has become so popular that it's now in the Oxford English Dictionary, and I'm the dude who invented it. If you type in "what is newsjacking" into ChatGPT, it's pulling my stuff because it's on the public internet. I don't have any kind of password protection. I did not try to copyright it. And that's totally cool because that's the way that I went out for it. So that's one way to use AI. I think what's really...
Wait, I got to interrupt you. Just for our
please.
Viewers, and you can certainly get a lot more detail about newsjacking, but just describe for us very quickly what newsjack. We were doing a little bit of it just before, but
we were. Newsjacking is injecting your ideas into a breaking news story in order to generate attention for your business.
Thank you.
So we were just talking about Bud Light. Imagine if, for example, a bar said, "Oh, we're going to make free Bud Light between 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. on Saturday." And they're doing that because they're piggybacking, I call it newsjacking, off of a news story. Right. Or maybe Miller Lite says, "Oh, well, we're going to do this in order to take advantage of the Bud Light story that just came out." Right. So that's the idea of newsjacking in any organization, big or small. I just gave an example of what a great example. A small organization, a bar, or a big company, another beer company, could potentially do to piggyback or newsjack off of the Bud Light story that we just talked about. So getting back to artificial intelligence, where I think very few people are talking about, but I think is fascinating, and I think all marketers and businesses should be thinking about, is how to take the math and the data, the math from somebody who's created a great program, AI program, against your data.
Yes.
Your own data.
Yes.
And I'm doing that personally in two ways. I want to explain those very briefly. And I think this is super powerful stuff. And as you're thinking about AI, anyone who's listening in on this, thinking about AI, think about how you can apply artificial intelligence to your own data to do something super interesting. So I use a service called Lately, lately.ai. I happen to be an investor and an advisor to the company. But what they do is they take long form text or video or audio content and break it into short form social media posts. And then you're able to put those social media posts into a calendar app and have those posts go out on a basis that you choose. So here's what it means on a practical basis. I'll take a blog post, long form text content, maybe 800 words. I'll put the URL of the blog post into Lately, their AI engine. So remember, AI is data and math. So Lately's math against my data, which is a blog post, will then create somewhere between 5 and 20 tweets from my blog post.
Right.
So what's important here is it's not grabbing stuff from the public internet that you don't own,
Right.
like something that someone else created and making a tweet from it, because technically you didn't write that. But if it's your own content that then is created in a different way,
Right.
super easy, it takes seconds.
Right.
That is really interesting to me. And then I just push a button and I say, send these
that.
tweets every other week until they run out. And so that's one example of this idea of data and math, data from some company. Data from you, from me in this case, math from somebody else. Here's another example. I just finished a project where I've taken ChatGPT math and I'm applying it now in a closed system just in my office for all of my 19 years of blog posts. I actually counted them, 1,500. I didn't count them manually. I just looked at how 1,589 blog posts in 19 years, and the text of 6 of my books that are marketing and sales related. So what do I have? I have nearly 1,600 blog posts. I have all of the content of 6 books, and 2 of those are Wall Street Journal bestsellers. One's a Business Week bestseller. And then all of that is my closed database, my data, ChatGPT's math, and I use that all the time now. I say, hey, create a blog post about and type a subject in, and it's pulling my data, my proprietary data, runs a blog post, bang, I can put that up on my blog. It's taken me a couple of minutes to create a blog post, whereas using the brain, wetware rather than the software, then it takes much longer. So it's real, and I don't know if I'm going to release this on my website and say, here's my chatbot that you can access all of my content or not. I'm just not sure yet. I'm thinking about it, but imagine, for example, a much better way of doing FAQs, frequently asked questions. If you've currently got an FAQ page on your site, and there's like 200 random questions, why not take all of your user manuals, all of the content you've ever created, all of this stuff, drop it into a closed database, put some AI against it, and people can write natural language queries and rather than having a standard FAQ, which never really works out so well. There are so many different applications for this kind of thing, which is your data against an AI application of some kind. So I'm really bullish on those ideas.
I think that you have hit it right on the head. Right now, we're playing around with public data on the internet, which is fine, and we'll have a lot of
I think it's great because it's giving you a chance to think about how this stuff works. But then, oh my gosh, how can I then create something using my data?
I'll tell you what excites me. I just want to say, Bard, Google's AI engine, excites me. And it's, first of all, Google is, they were already, well advanced along, the conversational chatbots, just like AI, but like OpenAI, but they were kind of forced into releasing a little bit early. They trust me when I tell you it's Google, they're going to get, to a high level of accuracy.
Many people believe that they've got a way better model that is sitting in some server somewhere that they may or may not release, but that's what I'm hearing.
And to your point, when you talk about the closed data, just think about, telling Google they've got your Gmail history, they've got your Google, Docs history. And by the way, Microsoft's doing the same thing on Office. Where you can be like, I need you to go through all of my Gmails and all of my docs, find these customers that hit this criteria that might be interested in this, and send out. Now, my company, my day job is we sell CRM systems. So we implement Salesforce and Zoho and Dynamics and a couple others. So imagine if you had, a ChatGPT or a Bard that was using my closed data, my CRM system, where I could be like, please find everybody with blue eyes and green hair who's an Eagles fan, who bought this product that might be interested in that product. Compose this type of an email and send it out. I think that is blows my, I mean, I think that is where the real power is going to be. Just
And and,
data.
and that's I use I mentioned earlier I'm on the advisory board of HubSpot and I use HubSpot myself.
Yep.
They've just put a Chat GPT interface. They call it Chat Spot, which is a cute name, over the top of HubSpot, and you can do much of the things you just talked about. I can go in and say, let's say I have a speaking engagement in, I don't know, let's say Singapore.
Right.
How many people subscribe to my blog in Singapore? I can ask it natural language. Bang, they tell me, and I say, send them. How many of those people am I following on social media? Bang, it tell me. I can then perhaps direct message them,
Yes.
or message them on LinkedIn or whatever I happen to be connected. Hey, I'm going to be in Singapore in 3 weeks.
Yes.
Want to get together? I mean, I couldn't do that before. There's data. It's too much data. I could never have done that.
Yeah, it's very exciting stuff. Well, David Meerman Scott, do you go by David Meerman Scott or just David Scott? What do your
So
friends
there's a story behind that.
Isn't there always?
There is. When I started my business 21 years ago, I decided I wanted to write and have a blog and do all these sorts of cool things. And Google didn't exist, or maybe it didn't yet. Maybe the company did, but they didn't have a search engine yet. So I went to Yahoo. I typed in David Scott. There's a David Scott who walked on the moon. There's a David Scott who's a member of Congress from Georgia. There's a David Scott who's an Ironman triathlon champion. So I said, well, shoot, there's all these David Scotts who are all these top hits on Yahoo. So I decided to use my middle name, which is Meerman. And so that's the name I use. It's on all my books. It's on my website and stuff. But I'm David. But that was a great thing to have done. I think it's one of the most important things that I've done is just to make myself unique on the web.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking about starting a business, if you're thinking about renaming a business, if you're thinking about naming a product, many people will go through a trademark search, but go through a Google search too and see if you can own that real estate on the web, because it's super important.
The book is called The New Rules of PR and Marketing. It's in its 8th edition. I've been speaking with David Meerman Scott. David, I have 8 pages of notes I took on this book. I got to none of it because
nice.
It's too topical. I had to get your thoughts on some of these things.
That's awesome. I'm glad you did. It was a fabulous discussion, Gene. I'd love to meet up one day in person and sit across a real table from you and have a chat.
And maybe actually do another one where we actually talk about your book. But for guys who haven't read this book, it is a great book. And like I said, I read through it cover to cover and really enjoyed it. It is a great playbook for anybody that's trying to grow their business and trying to learn more about marketing. And it is very current. David, people can reach you at davidmeermanscott.com or at
davidmeermanscott.com, or as we just said, type that into Google. You get all sorts of stuff about me. On most of the social media, I am DM Scott, DMSCOTT.
Very good. Well, first of all, thanks for joining. I'm going to stop the recording in a minute, so don't leave, but I want to thank you for joining. So thank you. And everybody, thank you for watching. You have been watching another episode of Biz Books. My name is Gene Marks. We'll be back in another 2 weeks with another great author, probably not as great as David, but close. We'll be talking about whatever book that they wrote. Join in and tune in. We will see you then. Take care.